the people are asking, many, especially those, on social media, especially those on the YouTube, who's Shaykh Hasan? Who's Shaykh Hasan when it comes to, da'wah? Is he situated in the UK? Or is he situated in America? Tell us about your efforts, generally speaking, and, the communities that you're dealing with.
Naam. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. So I was born in Cardiff, Wales.
Okay.
In a place known as Bute Town, which has a rich history because it was one of the first multicultural communities in the UK. And the reason for that, it was a coal port. So a lot of seamen used to come from the Middle East, Africa, and various parts of the world, and they congregated in that area.
Okay.
So my parents were born there as well.
Oh, mashallah. Okay.
Yes. And Somali because of my father. His father is from Hargeisa.
Oh, so you're mixed race.
Yes.
Mashallah, like me then.
But the lineage in Islam goes from the father. I think in opposition to the Jews, right? I think it's from the mother.
No, just as well the father. It's the father yeah.
Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, I think because in the Old Testament it says the seeds of the father to be an Israelite.
To be part of a certain tribe, it goes by the mother as well.
The mother as well,
The mother as well, yeah.
They say it was out of the Romans.
Okay. That's interesting. Alhamdulillah. Generally speaking, when it comes to social media, one of the main questions we get are, who are your mashayikh? Who are your scholars or who are your teachers? Shamsi knows. And where have they really studied? So, pertaining to that sort of, subject there, where have you somewhat studied, if that makes any sense? And, how long for and,
Alhamdulillah, I studied with primarily Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala. During the mid-90s, there was an opportunity to seek knowledge, especially here in the UK, like there is now with regards to the teachers that are here, the mashayikh, and also the number of Salafi masajid and centers. So there was limited opportunity except for maybe select areas at that time. And also there wasn't the internet lessons like Markaz ibn al-Qayyim and the various marakis that you have. University of Medina existed, but it was very difficult at that time to get accepted. It was harder than it is now. So a feasible option was Yemen. Why? Because it was very cheap relatively for somebody to travel to Yemen and study with Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala. So I first traveled to Yemen in, I think it was the beginning of 97. 1997, and Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala, he was there, and I immediately went to Damaj. That was the place that I wanted to go. Why? Because I heard a lot about it. Prior to that, I visited Egypt. And I spent like a month in Egypt. My cousin was there studying in some of the marakis there. However, Egypt wasn't the place for me for various reasons. So I heard about Yemen, alhamdulillah. When I heard about Yemen, Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala, obviously he was from the mashayikh of the Sunnah. He was praised by the senior scholars of that time, that era, a person of hadith. So alhamdulillah, it was one of the options available to me. I was studying in London actually, in King's College, University of London.
Okay, before you went Yemen?
Before I went to Yemen.
Is that central London?
Naam. They had a campus, I think, in the Strand, and they had a campus in Kensington. So I was between the two of them.
Okay.
So alhamdulillah, I was practicing at that time, ascribing to the Sunnah, alhamdulillah, but didn't have knowledge of the Arabic language. And at that time, university campuses were a hotbed for debate and discussion. You had Muhajirun, Hizb al-Tahrir.
Okay, they were around those times.
They were around at those times, yeah. Umar Bakri was teaching actually in King's.
Okay.
Naam. And, you had the people who were calling to blind following of the madhahib. You had the Sufiya. You had people, the takfiris, Azam publications, come and join the caravan, Abdul Azam, in the hearts of green birds. So you had all of this taking place, and there was heated discussions about what was correct and what was incorrect. Alhamdulillah, had an understanding, wallah alhamd, the mashayikh of the Sunnah, Shaykh al-Albani, Shaykh ibn Baz, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, Shaykh Rabi, Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala, and Hafidhullah Shaykh Rabi'an wal mashayikh al-akhareen. Naam. Had an understanding, alhamdulillah, that these are the mashayikh and these are those who we return to and benefited from their books, and obviously the books of the scholars who preceded them, but had also a desire to learn the Arabic language. So after my first year in the university, I left and I went to Yemen. So I was in, alhamdulillah, Damaj from like 97 to 2001 before 9/11.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So obviously that was a time where, before the time of, as I say, September 11th, what happened, Muslims weren't really somewhat, looked under this, eyes of scrutiny, that sort of harsh image, I suppose.
Yeah, everything changed after 9/11, subhanAllah, no doubt. I mean, especially for people that studied in Yemen, I think that was a region of, scrutiny at that time for, various reasons. But alhamdulillah, it was a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that following the Quran and the Sunnah with the understanding of the companions, and at the same time benefiting from the advice of the senior scholars, that was, again, tawfiq is from Allah Azza wa Jal, success is from Allah alone, but they were means to avoid anything that would, bring about, I would say, any, suspicion from, various bodies or authorities. Why? Because we stayed away from extremism. We were against extremism before 9/11.
I think, was it Muhajirun? They were the extremists sometimes.
Yeah, Muhajirun, Hizb Tahrir, but they were more Mu'tazili,
serious
at that time, because they used to deny the punishment of the grave.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
okay.
Yes,
they were more Mu'tazili.
Yes.
Way.
They sort of mutated Hizb Tahrir, then they became Muhajirun. Muhajirun, they weren't very religiously zahiran, apparently. They were more into politics. Even the madahir of the Sunnah, you wouldn't see them like with lihya, you wouldn't see them with thiyab. Even like talking about tawheed, it was all politics.
Yeah.
When they noticed that people were gravitating to learning about tawheed and learning about the Sunnah, learning about Salafiyah, that's when they started to claim Salafiyah.
Okay.
Naam.
Shaykh Hasan, because you mentioned about that we were against extremism even before 9/11.
Naam.
I know Imam Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i refuted Bin Laden before 9/11.
Naam.
So,
Naam. The first time I heard Osama bin Laden's name, it was in Damaj. I was in the class of Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah. Never heard his name. It must have been like about 2000, wallahu a'lam, or maybe 99. And the Shaykh, he was talking about various subjects, and he said in the class, he said, Osama bin Laden, rajulun damawi. He's a bloodthirsty individual.
Allahu Akbar.
I didn't have a clue who he was at that time.
See.
So this was prior to 9/11. So no one can claim that, the position of the Salafis, was dictated by, political events in the Middle East. That's a clear lie and fabrication. The position of the Mashayikh, the scholars of the Sunnah, and Shaykh Muqbil had, he had no connection to the government of Saudi Arabia at that time. Actually, I don't think he could travel to Saudi Arabia at that period of time. Alhamdulillah, later, when some of the Mashayikh interceded on the Shaykh's behalf and he went to Saudi Arabia for treatment, alhamdulillah, things changed. And he issued his statement, and he took back his speech about the government of Saudi Arabia. That was later on. But Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala, in 1999 spoke in condemning Bin Laden. Why? Because I think Osama bin Laden at that time, he was going to some of the tribes of Yemen, trying to, equip them with, military equipment, guns, and, other types of military equipment in order to encourage them to rebel against the government.
That manipulation.
Naam. Especially with poverty, the people are poor there.
Yeah.
So, trying to buy, the people, like, for example, similar to what we see with Iran, at this current time.
Yeah, that's serious. Because even me, I remember seeing a picture of it being in I think it was the Sun or one of the old school papers, where it's called him Bin Laden, whatever his name is, the freedom fighter against the Soviet Union. I don't know if that picture's still available till now.
I mean, even Shaykh bin Baz won't against him before the 9/11.
No.
Even Shaykh bin Baz won't against him.
And if you look at his teachers, majority of them are, the figureheads of Al-Ikhwan. He has no connection with, Salafiyah or any of the Mashayikh of Salafiyah. Wow. But alhamdulillah, like the position of Ahl Sunnah, they've been consistent, condemning extremism and terrorism way before 9/11. Why? Because it clearly opposes the text of the Quran and the Sunnah.
That's right.
Shaykh Hasan, you mentioned that I had one of the things that Imam Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i was known for is always to advise the students, make sure your da'wah is tamyiz.
No.
I mean, you don't mix with the people. Because some people now claim to attribute themselves to da'wah of Imam Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i, but you see them mixing with everyone.
No. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Shaykh would say, frequently, he would say that after the blessing of Allah Azza wa Jalla, one of the main reasons for the spread of the da'wah of the people of the Sunnah in Yemen is their tamayyuz, their clarity in their call. that, they're free from innovation and the people of innovation. And that was known, subhanAllah. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest with you. In Yemen at the time, it was clear. The people of the Sunnah were the people of the Sunnah, and the people of Bid'ah were the people of Bid'ah. There was no middle ground. Not like today, when you have some people who claim to be upon the Sunnah, but like you said, they're taking the people of innovation and misguidance as friends, or they want a selfie moment.
Yeah.
Or they want to be accepted by everyone. That clearly wasn't the da'wah of Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah ta'ala. The Shaykh rahimahullah, la yakhaf lawmata la'im. He didn't used to fear the blame of the blamers. And it was all out of advice because, he loved it and he wanted good for the Muslims. That was the premise. Same as Allah said about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If out of the mercy of Allah you were gentle with them. The Shaykh, no doubt, when there was the time to be stern, he was stern, but majority of the time he was gentle, especially with the common Muslims. And the people loved him for that.
Allahu Akbar.
Rahimahullah.
The layman Muslims.
Yeah, the general Muslims now.
Yeah.
Commoners, that's deep,
And that's how you see the beauty of the da'wah Ahl Sunnah. They understand people's predicaments and circumstances and they don't chase people away. And even if people have shortcomings, yes, they can't condone those shortcomings, but they will give them advice in the best fashion. And even the common people come to love him. Even the people of Damaj, who were just general people, they would just tell us stories for days. Like we'd ride with them maybe to the store or, talk with them just maybe in the cafeteria. They had a mat'am, there was one mat'am there, and they would tell you stories about Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah and various incidents and how he spoke the truth and, and he was courageous and, even though the people of Sa'ada, tried to ridicule him, but he wasn't wavered by that, and you could just listen to their stories and they had, a lot of respect for the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala.
That's deep, subhanAllah.
And they were awam and, at the beginning, they were Zaydis. They weren't people of Sunnah.
Okay, so those people...
They were Zaydis.
They were originally...
Zaydiyah, a sect of the Shia.
A sect of a Shia.
No, not as far as the Rafida, still upon innovation, but not as extreme as the Rafida Shia.
Okay.
So when they've noticed the Shaykh was clearly calling Tawheed and the Sunnah, not utering down, alhamdulillah, they accepted the da'wah.
Yeah, they accepted it. They loved him.
Yeah, now, subhanAllah, what we see, people just mixing everything and they're causing more confusion than clarity.
Yeah. And even when the Shaykh used to travel, rahimahullah, like if he used to go to Sana'a, if you saw how many people attended his lectures, subhanAllah, it was like a football match.
Serious?
Yeah, they used to have, guards on the roof. It was so many people, subhanAllah. The masjid, you've never seen crowds like that. That was the level of acceptance, alhamdulillah, that Allah Azza wa Jalla placed on the earth for the Shaykh and his da'wah. To the extent that his da'wah spread all over Yemen, in such a short period of time. Just think of it, Allah Azza wa Jalla subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of everything. Yeah. He was in a region of Yemen, Damaj, which is inside of Sa'da, that if it wasn't for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreeing that the Shaykh was there, I doubt any of us would have went there. There's nothing there.
Subhanallah.
I was from Sana'a, the capital, and it's, it's a difficult journey. It's in the mountains. It's quite dangerous. There's nothing there. There's no reason for anyone to go there. Yeah. But alhamdulillah, a scholar of the Sunnah, people come from all over the world.
Yes, subhanallah.
No.
That's deep.
And that's why, people saying, people are trying to control the da'wah. To me, anyone who says that, you have a weakness in your tawakkul. Who can prevent, Allah Azza wa Jalla subhanahu wa ta'ala once he decrees something? قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكُ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ.
What countries were they from, the other students? Was it all over the world, literally?
Yeah, you had students from, Libya at that time, they were running away from the tribulations of Gaddafi. And Algeria. You had students from, obviously many students from inside of Yemen itself, Egypt, Jordan, all over, even from the West, France, Sweden, the UK, America, from all over the world. When I first went there, like I said, in 97, the Western students, they weren't that many. Yeah. Maybe about 10, Allah, give or take.
10 Western students?
Yeah, 10 Western students.
And the West were from? France,
Sweden, America, and there may have been a few other countries.
Okay.
Okay,
that's deep. Because one thing I wanted to ask, especially when we were speaking to Abdullah Yemeni, what was the most significant thing you saw? Something that just hasn't left you. Obviously, it probably have been, numerous things, but what's the most significant thing that you saw when you went Yemen, Darul Hadith? That stuck there.
I think the implementation of the Sunnah.
Yeah.
Because certain practices of the Sunnah I witnessed there, I've never seen them implemented in other places, in the earth.
Okay.
Naam.
Like for what?
Like, for example, even praying in your shoes in the masjid. I've never seen that anywhere else except there. Naam, it's obviously we know if there's a carpet, we take off our shoes.
Yeah.
But praying, for example, in your shoes in the masjid, that was something that they practice in Damaj. Even outside of Damaj, in the other masajid of the Sunnah, that wasn't observed. And alhamdulillah, naam, like the ulama, they mention, we're not going to waste money and, dirty the carpet. So alhamdulillah, we take off our shoes, which is clear. Wallahi alhamd wal minna. But the Shaykh opted to, implement that Sunnah. That, obviously you verify and make sure that your shoes are clean of any impurity, but then you will go in the masjid and you could pray in your shoes. And it was just a simple, simple covering, simple carpet.
Simplicity.
Yeah.
People of Sunnah, mashallah.
Now, another thing that I noticed there, the love that the Shaykh had, for knowledge, rahimahullah ta'ala. Even on the day of Eid, he would cancel the lesson after Dhuhr and I think after Asr.
So he's doing minimum 4 to 5 books a day.
3 times a day. They were the mandatory lessons.
Is that something everyone has to go to, or is that optional?
Yeah, everyone had to go to it, attend those lessons. But then outside of that, you had your own, individual lessons.
Halaqat al-ilm.
Yeah, halaqat al-ilm. So for example, you went there learning Arabic, you would do the 3 Medina books. Obviously, that's what you would start.
Oh, you do the Medina books?
Medina books. Okay. And then once you finish the Medina books, you join Ajurumiyya. After you do Ajurumiyya, you do Mutammima. Kawakib was the explanation that they would do there.
Okay.
Then after that, you do, Qatar al-Nada. That was the, the Arabic program. The first book, one of the first books that you would do in Aqidah would be Al-Qawl al-Mufid fi Adillat al-Tawheed, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab al-Wasabi, rahimahullah ta'ala.
Okay, that's deep. Because a lot of people always ask me, from my experience, which is, very small in comparison to what anyone else has probably seen, but how long does it really kind of take a man, those times there, from, Dar al-Tawheed, was it Dar al-Hadith?
Dar al-Hadith, yeah.
To learn Arabic.
I mean, it depends on the individual, isn't it?
Yeah, this is what I say.
It depends on the individual. Yeah. I mean, but you would have brothers.
What were you seeing? What was your perspective? You were seeing people, for example, come with nothing and then all of a sudden start conversing in Arabic. What sort of time span you're talking about?
Alhamdulillah, you had some brothers, mashallah, there. They would benefit 6 months, mashallah. And they would finish the 3 Medina books.
6 months?
Yeah, 6 months. Others a year, depending on the student. And you had, mashallah, some brothers who were very, eloquent in the Arabic language. Some of the Western brothers, mashallah, and they spoke in Arabic. Some of them, you wouldn't differentiate between them and an Arab, mashallah. And a lot of their Arabic came from mukhalata, mixing with the students and speaking Arabic.
Okay.
More so than the study maybe of grammar.
Okay.
Now, so it depends on the individual. But one thing about Damaj, it was a place that Allah Azza wa Jal blessed, and even the Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah mentioned that you may have a student that, attended Dar al-Hadith, studied there, he may stay there for a year or 2, and he may benefit more than somebody that studied it maybe somewhere else for, a number of years. It's about how Allah Azza wa Jal blesses, a person's time. One of the things I think that was unique about Damaj was that, it was just a place of knowledge. Imagine just a small...
There's no dunya.
Yeah, no dunya, nothing.
That's the thing that kind of gets
There's
me.
nothing.
There's nothing there, and it's just, pure sunnah.
There's nothing. You had one store, in the single quarters, and there was one restaurant, small restaurant, very simple, and that would be the single quarters. And in the married quarters, you have one one just basic shop, one store, and apart from that, you got the masjid in the married quarters, and you had the main masjid where the sheikh taught in the single quarters, and that was it.
Literally.
But just to make it clear to the viewers, we're talking about back then.
Yeah,
Because
back
now,
then.
Rafida
I don't know what's going on there now.
Yeah, now it's
Allah knows best.
the Rafida. One thing I was going to ask you, Sheikh, when Imam Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i, when he knows someone's going back to the Western world, or the Gharb, what is the advice he gives to the Tullab that they're going back to the West?
Yeah.
One of the main pieces of advice that he would give is, for the strong students to benefit, their brothers and their sisters. We had a link with Shaykh Muqbil. I was still in Damaj at the time. And the Shaykh, rahimahullah ta'ala, Shaykh Muqbil, he gave a lecture to the brothers and the sisters in America. Even I advise people to listen to that up until today, because you see the insight of the Shaykh.
Serious.
He was advising the people of America, and he was warning them against people that try and split them on, racial lines. And you see that taking place now, even in the Muslim community.
That goes on.
Naam, he was advising them back then. Subhanallah.
Allahu Akbar.
And you see, like I said, you see the basir of the ulama, because they're aware that these things happen. And he was, stressing that the Muslim is the brother of the Muslim, regardless of their color, whether they're Arab, whether they're non-Arab. But in the talk he mentioned, he said, I advise the brothers and the sisters in America to benefit from Abul Hasan Malik. He said, for verily, he's a strong student of knowledge.
What year was that, Sheikh?
That was 2000.
2000.
No.
23 years ago.
No.
Wow.
And he said then, He said, I advise the brothers and sisters in America to benefit from Abul Hasan. Because the Sheikh was, alhamdulillah, one thing about the scholars, especially the senior scholars, they just want to see people benefit. All this, the picture that some of the Hizbis, they paint about them and the people of innovation, that they're trying to control this and control that, it can be further from the truth. What we learned from our senior scholars, the most important thing for them was that the da'wah was spreading, and alhamdulillah, there was cooperation upon righteousness and piety, and the da'wah was given in the correct fashion. That the fundamentals of the people of the Sunnah were not being compromised. That was the most important thing. And they would advise, when you go back to your country, benefit the people from what Allah Azza wa Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has taught you. And stay within that capacity, and alhamdulillah, you will benefit the people. And we see it. Students of Shaykh Muqbil, rahimahullah ta'ala, up until today, all over the dunya, benefiting the people. Alhamdulillah. And that's from the fruits of the da'wah of the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi.